Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Sensible Sundays, where we are empowering home sellers, home buyers, and investors to be well-informed consumers from the start of their real estate journey. And I have Miss Karina Calhoun, who is a credit coach, one of my preferred credit coaches, and the name of her company is War Cry Consulting. So it's Black History Month, February. The whole of February, we've been covering different topics and just honoring different people that made an impact to the credit industry, the mortgage industry, and real estate industry. And so today we kind of want to just touch on the Black history of mortgages and real estate. Just point out some key major things that happen. The major thing is it's something called redlining.
Mm-hmm.
And that's redlining was a tool to kind of segregate communities across the country by good old Uncle Sam, the federal government. And unfortunately, I've learned that it's banks have been known to use it as recent as 2015. So I kind of want to just touch on it so that, you know, all of you guys out there that's never heard of redlining could know what redlining is and just kind of touch up on some of the things that happen. I have notes back all the way from 1862 all the way to the present. And so that's what I want to get started on, just talking about what happened with Black people, African Americans, I guess would be the better term,
Yeah.
um, with the history of real estate and mortgages. So, and it's a lot of notes. So I'm going to be reading from just notes that I jot down. Um, so redlining is pretty much color-coded maps that lets banks know where it was safe to lend money to. Like green was go, like that's a good area. Um, and that happened to be areas where whites lived in. And red was just not a bad area. It was considered risky to lend the money. And unfortunately, that was like the Black communities and other minorities across the country. So 1862, the Homestead Act was created, and this began the history of excluding people of color from the government and housing programs. And then, of course, around 1930s, that's when the Great Depression began. And 1932, the Federal Home Loan Bank Act was created. And that was pretty much, it was intended to lower the cost of mortgages and to increase home ownership because of the Great Depression was going on and everything. But it was only to a certain particular type of person that actually benefited from this opportunity. 1933, Homeowners Loan Corporation, that's when they incorporated pretty much the color coded map where
Mm-hmm.
it would segregate the neighborhoods, and it would let banks know where was safe to lend and where was not safe to lend, pretty much. 1934, Federal Housing Administration outlined minority neighborhoods. It's the same thing. So I guess the Homeowners Loan Corporation and the Federal Housing Administration, which is FHA, outlined the minority neighborhoods using the color red, which gave a signal to the mortgage banking bankers which area was risky. Okay, so that's pretty much what I just said. So those two worked hand in hand, 1933, 1934 with the Federal Housing Administration, and 1933 with the Homeowners Loan Corporation. So those two things kind of worked hand in hand. Now, I came across something, it was a clause, and Karina, you're familiar with underwriting and all of that. But the underwriting documents actually stated this. It stated that it prohibited the occupancy of properties to which they could lend except by the race for which it was intended.
Exactly. And so I actually saw that as well. In other words, if that particular property was in an area for whites only,
Mm-hmm.
a black person, a Jewish person, whomever was not allowed to be approved for that loan. So it wasn't just, hey, my real estate agent isn't going to show me a house in this area, but actually the lender
Mm-hmm.
by law was not allowed to lend to a black person. I mean, that is,
And other minorities.
yes,
Because even Asians, Hispanics, we were all in, we were all considered minorities. So we were all
exactly.
in the
Yes,
same pot, the same boat.
yes.
Yeah.
So they were, it was, so, what we're trying to bring out, and folks, we're not anti-white or anti anything else.
Not at all.
We simply want to bring information out that we feel like our community needs to have. Because believe it or not, even as Des has said that there was a issue of this as recent as 2015, which, okay, that's 5 years ago. Number one, it should not have been as recent as 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then number two, just because it was an issue that was brought out 5 years ago does not mean that it's not happening now.
Right. That's right.
It just means that it's not been made known nationally. Okay. So it doesn't mean it's not happening.
Yep.
Because I guarantee you, if you have a home in a particular area, if they come and say, if the lender says we can't loan on this property, they need to have substantial information as to why they can't.
Mm-hmm.
It can't just be that, hey, the value is not in that property. You need to know exactly why. They need to be able to identify specifically why. And you have to be very careful with even with the value of the homes. Is that an underscore, are they trying to underrun you as far as, okay, well, the value's not there, so we can't. No. So we're trying to educate you guys on some of the things that are out there.
That's right.
Okay, so just know that the red
Here's
line.
something else that I found too. That in the early 1940s there was like a 6-foot high wall that was built in
Yep,
Detroit.
in Detroit. Yep. And they said it's still
because
there.
the Redlining, yeah, and it's still there.
Yeah.
So, guys, and we're talking about our parents. Like our parents grew up in this.
Mm-hmm.
Our parents grew up in this time. So it's just like, wow. In some regards, it seems like we've come a long way, but it's kind of like we haven't, because it's like we can't.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
There's already, because of history, there's already a huge gap that's there that we can never recover from unless the clock like has been stopped and everything's been erased and everybody's been given this equal opportunity to grow wealth through home ownership.
Absolutely. And
So
listen, guys, wealth, the biggest thing about wealth, and this is one of my hot buttons, the biggest thing about wealth, the way to really build it is through home ownership. And I mean wealth that's going to last.
that you
You
could
know,
pass down to
yes,
generations. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I had some notes here about the Veterans Administration, which, of course, is the
Mm-hmm.
VA. It's community boards often denied minority veterans mortgages. Many minority vets could not be even buried in the same cemetery. Just imagine fighting for this country and just not being treated like you deserve anything, And I mean, it's just like I'm glad we're past that thing.
Yeah.
Thank God. But again, like this information definitely needs to be out there and shared, because there's pretty sure white brothers and sisters out there that don't know this information,
Mhm.
that would be like, what, you know? So it's just important to definitely reach back and see what happened in time to, again, let like not repeat it. You have someone running around out here talking about they want to make America great again. We just want to make sure this is
But
not the
when?
part.
When was it great?
Right. Well, not for us. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Not for us. I mean, we can't say it was ever great, to be honest with you. Um, but yeah, let's just make sure this is not what we're going back to here to make it great again.
Right.
Um, so it wasn't until the year 1970 that the lending to minorities began to increase. So between 1934 and 1962, 120 billion in FHA and VA loans were issued. Now, 98% of those loans went to white families, and less than 2% went to African Americans and other minorities.
Wow.
That's huge.
Mhm.
That is really, really huge. And so, I mean, just imagine you have this one race had 98% of the opportunity,
Right.
and then the rest of the minorities and African Americans had only up to
Mhm.
2%. That is really huge, guys. Just, I mean, think about those numbers.
Right.
And that's why there's such a huge gap in the generational wealth out here.
Right.
Yeah, it's wow. That's a lot. Like, I didn't know that number was so huge.
And this is something, you want to really be aware of when you are working with your real estate agent. And Des has mentioned this in past episodes that we've done together, that she has to be very specific in what she does not say and how she does not lead you,
Yeah.
as far as what neighborhood, what she can say, what she cannot say. So if you find someone that is teetering, you need to make sure they're not being unethical,
Mm-hmm.
because people can go a very straight line and, be like, and if you're not aware of this, you can kind of go along with them and not even know that you've been a part of redlining.
Yeah. And
'Cause I
actually that,
know,
that part is called steering too. Like when a real
yes,
estate
yes,
broker will kind of steer a certain person towards a certain neighborhood.
exactly.
They call it a protective class, which I
Hmm.
believe is race, color, religion, sex,
Sex,
national origin.
nationality. Uh-huh.
And so you cannot
Right,
say, okay, in this community, there's about this many people here,
right.
or a client saying, hell, I want to be in a
Yeah,
African American community. Where's the
yeah,
top African? We can't do that, guys.
yeah.
We can't do that. And as far as crime rates, because I get that question a lot from buyers, best thing to do is go to Google, put in the area, Charlotte crime rate maps or whatever. You'll get the maps, and then you could do the research yourself. I
Hmm.
can't, as a realtor, I just cannot do that.
Right.
Um, okay, so what else? I have some other notes about the recent housing and foreclosure crisis from around 2008, 2009, were a continuation of a form of redlining, because financial institutions practice unrealistic credit scoring and predatory lending.
Yep.
And they said that the subprime mortgages grew to nearly 250% within 8 years. So in 1998, subprime mortgages made up 9.8%, but by 2006, they made up of about 23.5% of the market. And we see what happened with the aftermarket.
And I can attest to that.
Yeah.
That's actually started out in the subprime industry.
Okay.
I started out back, it was Decision One Mortgage. I don't know if too many people remember that particular organization, but they were large in the subprime space. And for many years, I was in that particular part of the mortgage industry. And that is very true. You're talking about astronomical interest rates, and the majority of the clients that we had, honestly, they were not people that had a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
They did not have the best credit scores. So imagine what that meant.
Yeah. High interest rates and high
Yeah,
fees.
yeah. And a lot of those people lost their houses. And a lot of those people were not in the best neighborhoods.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So it's saying that the high housing crisis affected all communities, but disproportionately devastated minority families. Like Blacks and Hispanic families lost nearly 20 years of wealth between 2007 and 2013.
Listen, can we just talk about that for
Okay.
a second?
Okay.
Think about your aunts, your uncles, your, cousins, the people that were coming up in the late 90s, early 2000s that worked hard to get their first house, only to lose it during the economic downturn. I was one of those people.
Me too.
And so imagine the wealth. Families were being displaced. I found for myself during that time, because I ended up relocating to another state, here to Virginia. And I had a friend say, well, Karina, you can talk to the community leaders there because you are a displaced worker. I had never thought of myself as that.
Yeah.
And it just dawned on me at that moment, I'm a part of a group of people that I never considered myself to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
And so imagine how this has really caused a depressed state within us.
Yeah, mentally.
Yes.
Because we talk about the mindset all the time.
Yes. So this
has really taken a toll on us, on our parents,
absolutely,
on us, on even our younger generation.
yes.
So we have to get out here. We have to start talking about this stuff, and we have to change the mindset. A lot of people always say, do you think racism will ever end? And do you think, it'll just be a fair world out here for everybody? You know what? I don't know. I don't wear a magic hat. I really don't know. But here's what I would like to say is that until the leaders, maybe the leaders of all the races, could come together,
Mm-hmm.
and they can say, you know what has been done to certain races have been horrible.
Yeah.
And just make clear of certain things that some races contributed to, that made a difference in this world. Like, until they could come together and just have just like a discussion, because these are the forefathers. It's not like, I'm sure there's people now that would never ever think or dream of doing that. People might even be embarrassed that these are their forefathers. But let's have a conversation, so that we can move forward on a better note, and just change the mindset and the mentality, the psychology of it all.
Right.
That's my thing. But
I want to kind of, sorry about my computer doing that, but one of the things that I think about often, and I've said this in several shows that I've been on or interviews, is that when I sit back and I look at, like, for instance, if you look at movies like Roots and different things like that,
mm-hmm.
and again, folks, we're not anti-white. We just want to bring out information
Right.
to help. And so when I sit and I look at a movie like that, and then you look at parts of it where, like if you remember Chicken George, who was Kizzy's son,
Right.
he was a chicken fighter. And so he made a ton of money, went out, he became free, but he would come back with these nice clothes on. And they were like, oh, that's nice, that's great. And so he lived this life that was, I guess, in essence, better than his family, his wife, his kids, And
Right.
they talked about it, and it made me think how we have this thing in our head. So we're trying to secure the bag and level up. And what I believe is happening is we're trying to do that, but we're doing it to validate why we have a spot at the table. We should not have to validate for ourselves why we have a spot at the table. We should be leveling up and securing the bag, not to say, hey, look at me, I'm just as good as you.
Right.
But we should be leveling up and securing the bag to say, I'm furthering along my family, my generations to come.
Right.
I am building out that wealth. But the more, as long as we continue to do it, to say, hey, look at me, I'm just as good as you are, I deserve to be at the table, we're going to fail. And this redlining can help us fail in that.
Yeah.
Because we're not really looking long term. That is just one of my hot spots when it comes to a lot of the things that I see happening out here. I want us to really secure the bag and level up in a different way. Not how, not to say I've got stuff. Right. That is not important. Right. Not to say, hey, look, I'm just as good as you are. So what? Who cares?
Right. What about coming together? Like, that's another thing. That's like, so many people have this over there and you have this over here. Why aren't we coming together and building something together? Because a lot of other races do it. Why can't we do it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Why can't we come together? Like, I always said, man, if I was rich, I said, when God gives me my
millions
and millions in the bank account, when it's physically there, okay, because it's on its way, it's building.
Yes.
But when it's actually there, I know I will make such a huge difference in this world.
Yep.
Because
absolutely.
I know if I had money, there would have been so many of our communities already built up.
Yeah. I see so many buildings that I know for myself, I just want to go buy today. And I have thoughts and plans and ideas of what I would do with them.
Yep. To help our communities.
Right.
Like, who's going to help? Who's going to help our younger generation come
Yes. Absolutely. And so one of the things that, with this redlining and getting this information out here, we have, and I say this a lot, we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And that hurts us.
That's right.
And so we're trying to get the information out here so that we have this information, because the game that has been played, we need to be better at it to win.
That's right.
And use it for our benefit. And I'm not an expert in this area, but the opportunity zones that are now, that's the big to do now. We need to really be knowledgeable in these things and use these things for our benefit.
Well, here's the crazy thing, okay? Because the FHA, the Fair Housing Administration, they literally created the suburbs.
Exactly. Yeah. When you really dig into the redlining.
They created suburbs, and so that's where a lot of the majority of Caucasians moved out to that neighborhood, and we were left in these certain areas. But now, all those areas across the country, okay, and I'm not physically there in every state or anything, but I hear from other realtors, they're all going through gentrification. So it's like we had this, and what did we do with it?
Well, we didn't know. We didn't know what we didn't know.
And that's another point that I wanted to make when I said that.
Yeah.
People want to know, well, y'all had it. Y'all had the downtown areas and you had this and that. Y'all didn't do anything with it. How about because we didn't know?
We didn't know what we didn't know. Absolutely.
How about that? And to the leaders of our race or our communities that did know and didn't contribute and help and share that knowledge, shame on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here
Absolutely.
we are.
Yeah.
Here
Absolutely.
we are. Now,
Absolutely.
in 2018, real estate and investment value has accumulated to be about 5 trillion for whites and 93 billion for minorities.
Mm.
So the white subsidy that was created years ago, where, white people had a head start on, that home ownership opportunity, really created that huge racial wealth gap.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, whoa, that's so my question about this whole redlining thing, okay, is like, what if discrimination did end, today, and what if we reverse the clocks and everybody was on a equal playing field? Would there even be a gap?
Right.
Would there even be a gap? Would some of the major, I would say the majority percentage of minorities, would they be in the state that they're in today, in some of the poorer communities?
Well, I think about one thing my husband and I have talked about a lot, and I'm certainly not an expert in this. He can explain it a lot more than I can, but we talk about the difference in equality and the difference in equity. Equality is we're all given equal rights,
Mm-hmm.
but the equity is we all get what we really need. And there's a difference. Right now, we're not getting what we really need to
Mm-hmm.
make us whole.
Right.
And at this point, it's going to take us doing more than what we're doing. And I'm just going to kind of put this out there, even as Des, you've said that I'm a credit coach. With the credit repair phenomenon that's happening, we're doing great with that. We're doing wonderful. But we're not taking it a step further and saying, okay, I've got my credit repaired, but I'm not building it out so that I can get better interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's actually a benefit for my family, and not 2 years down the road, I'm hassling and trying to figure out how to pay my mortgage because my income has not increased. Because let's be honest, we get in those situations where our jobs are given 10% raises or 10-cent raises,
Right.
50-cent raises. And so we have to do things a lot differently than what we're doing. We get stuck in this one area and that becomes our norm. So we've gotten stuck in, we can get these FHA loans at these credit score, levels,
Uh-huh.
but yet we don't go further and say, okay, now that I'm building out my credit and I'm doing good and I have a job, for the last 2 years, how about I go further and get these conventional loans or, these FHA loans. Yeah, I'm going to keep the FHA loan, but I'm going to have a higher score so that I can get even better rates. You
Right.
understand? It's instead of just doing this.
Yeah.
Let's
Just doing
come up.
enough.
Yes.
Just doing enough just to get this.
Yes.
But not doing what you need to do to get it and maintain it and build from
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
And these are just little things that can help beat the redlining game, because if you go to a lender, that you believe is practicing in this, and you've got amazing credit scores, and you've got the income, and you've got the assets, and you've got everything that you need, and then they say, well, no, we can't. I need to know why.
Right.
I need you to document why.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
But we have to be better at this game than those that are making these policies are.
That's right. That's right. Now, another thing that I wanted to actually talk about aside from redlining is an organization called NARAB, which is the National Association of Real Estate Brokers.
Mm-hmm.
So it was founded by 12 people in Tampa, Florida in July 1947. And NARAB was developed out of the National Negro Business League, which was founded by Booker T. Washington. And O.D.Morrison was the first president of NARAB. Their motto is democracy in housing. And it was so that Blacks couldn't call themselves realtors, so they had to come up with this organization, which they actually started calling themselves realtists. Because like right now, I'm a part of the National Association of Realtors. That's where you get your realtor stamp. Like if you're not a part of that organization, you cannot call yourself a realtor. So back then, it was like Blacks just there was like nowhere for them to kind of like work and perform in the real estate market because,
Wow.
we just couldn't use that title. And so that's why NARAB was created. And so NARAB was one of the main organizations that pushed really strong for the Fair Housing Act of 1962, which made it illegal to discriminate against Blacks and real estate professionals. And so it kind of removed legal barriers to Blacks moving into white neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
So, and NARABs, there's like different boards across the country, just like there's different realtor boards across the country. So the NARAB's Atlanta board, which is called the Empire Board Realist, they won a landmark lawsuit filed in the 1980s. This is 1980s.
Wow.
Like that's not that.
Right.
I was actually alive then. Like,
yeah, I was a kid running around. Yeah.
So they won a landmark lawsuit filed in the 1980s that went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the ruling made it illegal for the multiple listing service, which is the MLS. That's
Mm-hmm.
where realtors put listings on and off the market. Okay. It made it illegal for the multiple listing service to restrict Black real estate professionals from using the MLS. And the courts found it illegal for MLS to require agents to be NAR members to use the service. Realists and any other qualified agents were now able to join. So I was like, wait a minute, I didn't know it was that recent, 1980,
Wow.
that's not. So here, just in the 1980s that I was actually gave me the opportunity to be able to say that I'm a realtor or be a part of the National Realtors Association. So that's who I really wanted to honor tonight as far as our spotlight, the first president, Mr. Morrison, and also the 12 people that came together to create NARAB, the National Real Estate Brokers.
Absolutely. And looking at the site is really interesting. Their annual convention this year is good. It's in August. It's going to be in Detroit, Michigan. And you just talked about that wall, that redlining wall that's in Detroit. If you're going to go, it would be interesting to film from that wall if you get
I know, right?
To really talk about this a little bit more, because it makes it more real.
Right.
Hopefully, honestly, if you're able to go, hopefully by then that wall will be gone. I mean, you would really want it to be gone, but if it's not, that would be an awesome treat for us.
Well, the water there isn't that great, right? So if they can't even get rid of that, I doubt it if that wall is going anywhere anytime soon.
That is true. That is true.
But so that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. And I hope that giving you the information will propel you to do some things
Yes.
that's going to create wealth. I know we have a lot of catching up to do based off of the numbers of years and the gap that we have. But just really be conscious of your efforts on really building wealth, really leaving legacy for future generations, and
Absolutely.
making a difference.
Yeah.
Even one person can make a difference.
Absolutely.
So let's all do our part. So did you have anything?
No, I think you said, what I just to piggyback off of that, honestly, I mean, ditto. Because what we need to do is really look at building wealth differently. And certainly the information that we give is, again, not to hype anybody, not to create havoc or chaos, but to bring education, to bring awareness, for you to actually mobilize once you see this, and hear this information, not to go out and be upset and angry, but to just really be mobilized in your efforts.
That's right. Because the people that even did this, they're not alive anymore.
Exactly.
You can't go out here being mad and, just down on the white race or anything like that when we're living in a different time now.
Right.
You can't do it.
Absolutely.
And most of them probably don't even know the information either.
And that's the biggest thing. I think a lot of times people are they don't understand that the laws that are being enforced, oftentimes the people that are enforcing them may not even realize the implications behind them. They just know it's a law that needs to be enforced,
right?
Or a practice that needs to be enforced, and so it's unfortunate, but again, we have to be better at the game that was set out before us.
Yeah. And knowledge is key.
Yes.
People perish for a lack of knowledge, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That's what the good book says.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's get that knowledge.
Yeah.
Learning and knowledge is key. Knowledge is power. So
absolutely.
Don't be afraid to attain it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. All right, everyone. So, you know what? Thank you again for watching, for joining us again for another Sensible Sundays. Of course, we'll be back again next Sunday. And I want you guys to be encouraged. Again, I want you guys to think wealth building, passing down to your future generations. And of course, I want you guys to be inspired and then act on your inspiration. Bye.
Bye, guys.